Welcome everybody to this meeting today of Muleskinners here in Boone County. And we're very privileged today to have a couple of guests. And the first one for the first half hour is Lucio Bitoy. He can explain to me how I said that wrong or how you can say it right in the future. And I will ask him. He's a write-in candidate for mayor this time. We're not normally able to schedule write-in candidates because our scheduling is so tight. But we're very fortunate to get together with your schedule and with our programmers to have you here today. So I've asked him to tell us about himself and his campaign for mayor and spend up to 15 minutes doing that so that you have 15 minutes to ask your questions afterwards. So, Lucio, take it away.
Okay, so my name is Lucio Bitoy IV. As you mentioned, I am a certified writing candidate for mayor for the upcoming April election. Sorry if you hear a lot of emotion in the background. I just took a quick 15 to to come out and take this meeting. Right now, I'm subbing at Blue Ridge Elementary, so some of the second graders are at recess. So I apologize if you can hear the youth in the background. My background is in political science. It's something that I've been passionate about for over a decade. That's what I studied in college. I've interned at the House of Representatives here in Missouri. I've also spent some time working for the CDC Foundation in program analytics. And as well as with Columbia Boone County Public Health and Human Services. I was their PIO for a while. Like I said, currently I am a substitute teacher with, within CPS. The reason that I'm running, is because historically, from what I've been able to ascertain in Columbia, the elections are typically sorely lacking in policy, specific, even like a vague aspersion to a vague allusion to a policy, let alone having a spelled out detailed policy um, and actionable steps to see that policy through or providing the rationale for the policy. And that's something that I just do pretty much reflexively. It's kind of something that I do as easy as anyone does anything that they've mastered. And specifically, I've seen a severe lack of policy specifics with regard to improving the material conditions of low-income people of all demographics, in particular, Black and Brown residents and low-income white residents. Um, I will sometimes hear, someone say something about we need economic opportunity, or mentorship and things like that. But to them, I would ask, is that how the white middle class was built? It wasn't. It was built through government programs, it was built through, land acquisition, land theft. So it's just a lot of the mechanisms that led to the creation of the middle class in America are not being afforded to poor and working people present day. And there's this idea of, oh, well, everybody just needs to either learn the code or start a business. Everybody does not have the proficiency to start a business or to learn how to code. So we need to have more jobs programs and job trainings and things like that, so that people who are falling through the cracks of our economy um, find some type of soft landing, I should say. Um, Now, my platform in and of itself, it's centered around human rights, economic democracy, upgrading infrastructure, charter change, and community control over the living sector. First and foremost, probably is for charter change because Columbia needs like the local equivalent of a constitutional convention. The charter here is very outdated, outmoded, and it is one of the biggest barriers to making making generational improvements in the material conditions of marginalized people in Columbus. So to that end, I've done a lot of research and analyzing to develop this platform, so I can give you a little bit of the specifics. Now, with regard to economic democracy, it's just to put it the most simply, just that um, working class people having more direct control over the economic institutions that shape their lives. So I would be, as mayor, I would organize with the residents to fight corporatization and underdevelopment of essential infrastructure and the deliberate underdevelopment of poor working class communities. Um, some specific policies that I would like to enact or some remedies. I would be pushing for the formation of public banking in Columbia, as well as resident control over the public utilities. And a good example would be out in Pittsburgh, the Our Water campaign. I would love to see something like that in Columbia, and would use the office of mayor to do what I can to work in concert with the people to see that real governance frameworks, co-governance framework, and community benefit agreements. If there are any questions about that later, I can give some specifics about the detail. Well, actually, I have 15 minutes, so I might as well. Co-governance is just where elected officials are actively working with the communities when they draft their policies, and then they move them forward in ways that people who are most harmed by structural discrimination are part of co-creating solutions. As far as benefit agreements, that's just like a legally binding contract between residents and a private development entity. So it would just incorporate residents' needs and desires within the planning process, sorry, and address how the community will benefit post-development. So the community is going to be in that scenario. The community would be represented by legal professionals who negotiate with the development entity in pursuit of their goals and expectations. So in this locally, that would mean, as mayor, I would task, if possible, the city attorney with spearheading those negotiations with businesses on behalf of city residents to get some community benefit agreements. Because I hear a lot about uh, the type of tax revenue and all that that'll come in from all of these dispensaries and whatnot that are popping up all over town, in particular on the north side. But how much direct investment is going from those private entities directly into the public investment? I have not been able to get a straight answer from City Hall yet. So I'm still working on that. But I think it was to be proactive, and when we are going about the business of approving these new developments, these new corporations in town, we should be doing so contingent on their willingness to go along with the community benefit, especially on the north side. All these coffee shops and everything like that that pop up on the north side, things that could be something that is a lot more life affirming than just the commerce that does not actually invest directly in the community. That. So some other things, yeah, I already mentioned public banking. Let's see, I mentioned community benefit agreements. What else do we have? Let's see. Oh, more retirement planning services and services available to augment current retirees' financial state, particularly for low-income seniors. We need more opportunities for positions in the city since it's one of the best paying and best benefited jobs in town. I believe that city employees should have a wage floor, which is a certain percentage of the area media income. That would be a community discussion to determine exactly what percentage within, which range within the area media wage for the city employees. And we need a lot more city-based grants for a lot of otherwise we would not be able to take on because see now housing. We know housing is a serious issue here. The average rent in Columbia is somewhere around $1,200 a month. And the Boone County Housing Survey showed that individuals need roughly 2.2 incomes to afford the average rent. And about half of the survey respondents in that same survey report being rent burdened, which is their rent costs more than 30% of their income. With that in mind, the North Side is rapidly gentrifying, and like a lot of the rest of the country, Columbia is seeing increases in homelessness. Uh, I personally believe that housing is a human right, and that in my observation, below market rate units have been increasingly unattainable for renters because the affordability thresholds are too high and to be affordable for those with moderate or low income. So we need to work on removing some of these barriers and or subsidizing rents for those who qualify. The city can create expanded opportunities for people to access rental housing. So a few examples of that would be, I personally would propose a budget amendment for the housing and neighborhood services programs that were once part of community development, with a significant portion of that going into the local land trust. I would say I would go for 20 million just because ask big, make them negotiate you down. Um, but because the uh, it's built through public-private partnerships. If I'm not mistaken, I would have to double check with the city attorney, but I'm fairly certain that they are exempt from the Missouri preemption law that prevents rent control. So we could have some permanently rent-controlled units um, being built in Columbia and actually have a serious amount of money going into that. So instead of just saying, "Oh well, we need all these affordable housing units," let's hope that the development community that's exacerbating this housing crisis, let's hope that they all of a sudden find a conscience. No, that's being derelict in our duties. That's being derelict in the duty of legislator. Aside from that, I would like to sorry, lost my place. Yeah, I would also like to start with a small scale land bank so that we could take some proactive steps towards thoughtful planning and development that enriches our communities. I would want to explore options. Sorry, it's getting really windy out here. The storm is coming in. But I would like to explore options for converting public housing units into condominiums with a low cost buy-in for qualifying residents. I would like to create a market of culturally relevant affordable housing development professionals, excuse me, and establish programs that give preference to developments that build units for 50 to 80% of the area median income. And then that would come with fast track approvals, bonding, and other builder support. Let's see, offer voucher holders automatic qualification and first right of refusal for rental properties, with all their financial eligibility needs being supplemented by the city. Let's see, we could also try to provide moving stipends for people for housing voucher holders that are moving within the city. I would also like to see the establishment and a commitment to at least 5 years of initial funding for a public-private partnered community land trust that would be governed by Black residents to procure and develop properties that in target neighborhoods. In addition to housing, the land trust would own commercial and retail properties, investing particularly in vacant storefronts along commercial corridors in Black cultural districts, and this would offer flexible leases at discounted rates to black tenants. I would like all residential vacancies 3 months before to be immediately available to low-income homeowners or renters as a part of a housing that are part of the housing voucher program. I would like to establish a revolving fund for Black businesses, education, and homeownership. And I would like to have that funded in part by the tax revenue from the cannabis industry and any restitution from drug-related class action lawsuits where the city happens to be benefited. I would like to address homelessness through a Columbia Housing First initiative. This would place the homeless into supportive tiny housing without so many oppressive prerequisites. Sorry, and the program would give homeless residents an opportunity to get housing, and then get their lives together rather than the other way around. However, to ensure that they take some ownership of their housing, they would be required to pay either 25% of their monthly income or up to 100% or up to $100 a month. I would like to utilize more proactive policies to combat homelessness by way that results from housing discrimination. So updating the local charter to include income sources and credit scores in the protected demographics or descriptors that are covered by our housing discrimination ordinance. And that would just simply mean that if someone was a gig, not be denied makes like an ordinance change to prevent discrimination based on income source. That would keep housing away, and that would keep them off the streets. With regard to construction, we are kind of just kicking the can until the point at which we have a catastrophic infrastructure uh, situation. We have over $100 million in upgrades that need to be made to our water and distribution systems. These improvements were not only promised to by the city, but they were approved by voters, and many of them remain unaddressed. Some of these projects haven't even started. Long time, our local leadership has now the deferrals have gone so long that now it's actually cost was originally estimated to cost. So I'm committed to expediting sidewalk master plan as well as the ongoing sewer rehabilitation project. And I also advocate for the implementation of an iPhone plan for east to west transmission of power. And with regard to the water tower that needs to be built, it's a matter of the topography. So if the most ideal space in Columbia based on topography happens to be somewhere that has a private owner of the land, then they need to be negotiated with. I would prefer not to go the eminent domain route. So I would say agree for their land and hopefully appeal to their better judgment. If they won't go for the
Mr.
above market.
Bitoy,
Yes.
hello.
Yes.
Thank you for really remarkable display of details here. The 20
Right. I just
minutes has
realized.
passed, and we do want to have a little time for questions. And
Okay.
you have given us a lot to think about. I'll start out by looking at the chat, which may be difficult for you to get. One person wanted to hear more about the idea of public banking. And then another
Mhm.
person wanted to know about your write-in candidacy, if you had anything to say to explain that.
To explain the write-in candidacy?
Yes. Was there a problem getting regular, or did it come late? I don't know. Why did you choose to run as a write-in is what they ask. I'm
Oh,
not sure that you
okay.
did choose.
Okay, so if it's okay, I'll start with the second. Excuse me. I'll start with the second question first. So, I initially was not planning to run. I was prompted to run just because I saw what the field looked like, and I felt that the people of Columbia deserve better. Frankly, just that. I think that people deserve better. I think that people deserve someone who is not going to treat something as serious as a mayoral election in the city and state, like a high school election where we're all just running on vibes and don't you love the city? I love the city. Don't you love it too? Or just running on fear mongering and I think I can buy a mayor's. So like I said, I initially was not going to run. I did not start my signature collection until well after the signature collection period had started, but that was because I thought someone else would step up. Since no one did, I went about my signature collection. I did get 100 signatures, but I ran out of time. I got my 100th signature at 4:55 on the deadline day and was not able to make it to City Hall on time. So I was on the other side of town, couldn't make it from the south side to City Hall in 5 minutes without driving very dangerously. So and even that, still, it was 100 exactly. So there's a chance that some of them may have been disqualified. So yeah, that's the long and short of it. I was not going to run until I realized no one else was going to step up and and take it as seriously as it should be taken. So then I had and just hopefully that gives enough detail.
Yes, thank you. And about the bank you were talking about, a public bank, how does
Yeah,
that work, or can you refer us to other places that do it?
yeah. So public banking is just what's the best way to describe this? It's a bank where effectively the same concept that goes into a cooperative where the people actually own it and they have a vested stake in it. It's the same as this banking. So it would be a bank that is formed in the public interest and through the institutions owned by the people and through their direct representatives. The public banks would exist to give credit opportunities that would not normally be available through private banking. So a public bank might not utilize the checks system, or it might have a more lax metric for home and business or auto loans. So in terms of the formation, that would require looking at the local ordinance to see whether or not to be sure whether or not it's allowed based on local law. If I'm not mistaken, it is. So some places that have them, sorry, I wrote this down. Let me try to find it. I'm sorry, I have to write through my Google Doc.
How is this different than a credit union?
It's different than a credit union because a credit union still ultimately does have a private owner behind it. So in the event of a public bank, it would be a bank that is I guess the head of the bank would be the city. So it wouldn't be it wouldn't be like Missouri Credit Union is not. I believe their corporate headquarters is in Mexico, Missouri, or not Missouri Credit Union, Columbia Credit Union. I believe they're based out of Mexico. But yeah, it would just be that the buck would stop with the city. So your lien holder would be the city instead of the bank, instead of a private entity.
I see.
Okay, let me call on Alice for a question. Alice, are you there?
I am here. Mr. Lucio, I appreciate your knowledge about issues and your desire for civic engagement. All of us on this call love civic engagement, but I choose to help candidates who are running for office, who have experience and have worked on boards, commissions. So my question is, I guess, given that we have a candidate for mayor who has huge amounts of money to get out his message and has no policies except more police and more cuts to the budget, the type of programs in the budget that you are concerned about, the Opportunity Center, we don't know if we'll have it if he's mayor. Would you consider, given that this could be a very close election and change the entire nature of our council to the right, would you consider withdrawing from the race so that we elect the most progressive candidate with experience who supports an Opportunity Center, who supports many of the issues you have talked about? Would you consider that given the amount of money spent for this MAGA candidate?
No, because to be frank, the incumbent mayor is progressive in rhetoric only and not practice, certainly not in a political praxis. And in terms of progressive candidate with experience, no, I have not been on a board or commission, but I've worked in the public sector ever since I've been out of college. My area of expertise is specifically in political science, which has a strong tie, which is obviously very heavily rooted in public administration, public policy, and economics. And with regard to the money, yes, Blair is, in my estimation, attempting to buy a mayor's seat, but his strings are being pulled by other forces behind the scenes. I believe his strings are being pulled by institutions like the police officer, the CPOA, Mizzou Athletics, maybe the university as a whole. Uh, it's a very bad look. It's definitely a step in the wrong direction. That being said, I also believe that re-electing our incumbent mayor is a step in the wrong direction. And a lot of the, I guess, rhetoric or the talking points around what would be effectively, I guess I the bill as effectively the third party candidate in this race. And a lot of that's the same rhetoric that trickles down from the national level has reached my ears and inboxes with regard to quote unquote splitting the vote. But if we look at the national election, if Harris would have received every single vote that went for a third party candidate, she still would have lost by a wide margin. So it's frankly a fallacy that I engage with. I engage with it, but I mean I know it to be false, so can't I can't give the same weight as facts because it's just not a factual thing. Um, Also, I don't believe it is my responsibility to dumb myself down or silence myself for fear of making who's supposed to be the most experienced and the most proficient person in this race for fear of making them look bad. Barbara would not have any fear of challengers if the last 3 years were so stellar for everyone, or if she spent the last 3 years doing the type of things that I'm talking about now. Like if she spent the last 3 years actually learning policy chops, maybe she wouldn't be getting challenged right now. But the fact is, we just had Black History Month pass, and not a single Black specific policy point or even mention came out of her mouth at any of these forums. But she did make sure to post a picture of herself with a local entertainer and the mayor of Kansas City. And I find those things to be, frankly, disrespectful and disingenuous at best. So things like that are exactly why I will not stop. I will not drop out. And because I frankly believe that playing patty cake with enablers of oppressors is just as bad as playing patty cake with oppressors. And Orb also spent the last 3 years giving CPOA and CP everything that they wanted, despite the disparity stop there. And also, I've heard no mention about the disparity with regard to Black childhood poverty. Black childhood poverty is about 5.5 times that. Uh, you wouldn't know it because it never comes up, but it's the highest it's been since Boone County indicators started at disaggregating that data based on it's. So it's the highest it's been in at least 12 years. Hasn't come up. So when I hear that she supports a lot of the same stuff that I talk about and that she's this, beacon of progressivism, I have to ask where, because I've never heard Barbara have anything to say about uh, economic democracy as a concept, let alone any of the policies that would fall under that concept. Nothing about a Housing First initiative, nothing about a minimum budget for apartments that actually can build affordable housing units and give them rent control. Nothing about what her plan is for the east to west transmission. So I wonder, because people try to say this to me a lot. Well, Barbara aligns with you on a lot of things. Like what?
I'm going to have to call time now. Thank you so much for that very complete answer to what I think was an important question on people's mind. And Lucio, we want to welcome you back later, scheduling a little earlier so we'll have more time. You've got a lot of interesting issues that we want to follow, however you manage to push them forward. So good luck with the rest of your campaign. We thank you so much for scheduling us pretty much at the last instance.
Bush beat Gore because his brother was governor and threw that for him, not because of third-party candidates, Dave Taylor.
I agree with you. And thank you so much for coming today. We'll actually move on to our next guest, which is Jacque Sample. And I believe she is running for the 3rd Ward seat, which is mine. I've followed your career some, Jackie, and feel like I know you. I don't think you know me yet, but I'm currently president of Muleskinners, and on behalf of Muleskinners, I welcome you here. We want you, if you will, to take about 15 minutes, less if you want, to tell us about yourself and your campaign, anything you want to tell us about. And that we have people here who want to ask you some questions. So let's leave a little time for that.
Perfect. Thank you. So thank you for having me here. If I freeze, let me know, because I was having some connection issues in a different meeting, and I can go upstairs and it might be different. So just let me know if there's an issue. So my name is Jacque Sample. I grew up in Northwest Missouri, a very rural little farm town mostly. Moved to Jefferson City as a freshman in high school, and then came to MU after I graduated in 1998 and just never left. So kind of ended up becoming a Columbian without really it being an intentional plan. I've lived in the 3rd Ward for the last 10 years. So I'm pretty familiar with this area. My husband and I will celebrate 23 years of marriage in August. He is an engineer by trade, and I always joke about doing a research study on the number of OTs who are married to engineers, because for some reason it's really high. Like when I go to our national OT conference and meet new OTs and we talk about spouses, I'd say three out of 4 of them are married to engineers. So I don't know why, but it happened that way. So we have 2 children. We have 2 boys. My 21-year-old Zachary, he is on the autism spectrum and he lives at home with us. And then my youngest Charlie is 19 and he is in St. Joseph, Missouri, going to Missouri Western State University, where he is studying journalism, specifically sports journalism. So I thought I was going to be able to hang on to him. I thought he would go to MU wanting to do journalism, but he kind of wanted to go away, which I understand. And he's been doing some remarkable things. And I think having more opportunities than what he would have had at MU, because it's a smaller school. And he's currently like the only one who's really into sports. So he's really, I don't know if he'll ever be home again. Like he's not coming home for summer. He already has an internship, and he's going to work the Chiefs training camp, because their training camp is at Missouri Western every summer. And so he's going to work their training camp. So yeah, he's living life right now, and it's makes my heart very happy. So, so a little bit about me professionally. I'm an occupational therapist. I think I celebrated 26 years this year as an occupational therapist. I've worked in all types of settings, from adult down to children. I pretty much have specialized at this point in pediatrics. I also work in higher education. So I educate and train, I say my future colleagues, both occupational therapy assistants and occupational therapists. So I've been currently a hybrid occupational therapy professor through Cox College, which is in Springfield. And then I carry a really small caseload of early intervention kiddos through the First Steps program through Missouri. So that's the Birth to 3 program. I have a really strong, belief, value that you shouldn't be teaching something that you're not actively doing. And because especially in Missouri, or in healthcare, excuse me, everything changes so quickly. And so I try to keep my hands in pediatric practice so that when I teach it with my students, it's current, it's relevant. I'm right there with them experiencing it. So it's very few clients, but it's still being engaged in that team atmosphere, that community-based, home-based therapy services. So I do that. I'm getting ready to term out, but I'm serving as the president of the Missouri Occupational Therapy Association. So we there's about 8,000 almost licensed OT practitioners in the state. So we represent around 8,000 people plus all of our students. So and programs. So we've been very busy. My passion within OT leadership is policy. And we've been very busy past 5 weeks, playing defense on some really ugly legislation on initiatives on the DEI executive orders. There's a lawsuit our AG signed on to called Texas versus Becerra that calls for the repeal of Section 504 because of the inclusion of gender dysphoria as a covered condition. And then also the school choice school voucher bills, because it doesn't require the receiving school to continue a student's learning plan that they have because of their special needs. So it's been a busy couple of weeks. I'm kind of grateful that they're going to be on spring break next week because I can catch my breath. So anyway, so I'm very engaged policy wise with my program or my profession. As far as running for city council, some of you have heard me say this before, so apologies if this is on repeat, but people always ask, why are you running? And my grandfather, who I adored and is the smartest person I've ever known, just, his moral and ethical guiding force, it obviously had such an impact on my life. And he, when I was a very emotional teenager, I'd get worked up about things. And he would always just be so calm, and now Jackie, and talk to me about the importance of trying to recognize the facts and balancing it with emotion, which I'm not always good at. I try. But he also instilled in me that if you're going to complain about something, it's really important that when you go to have that conversation where you're complaining about something, that you offer a solution. And I've kind of modified that a little bit. I'm in a meeting for a little bit, so give me a minute, okay? Dad's going to take you. Yes, you're fine. Sorry, son with autism. That's what happens. My apologies. So I modified his advice a little bit. And instead of just thinking about complaining and offering a solution, I've modified it to say, if it's important enough to where I feel the need to complain about it, then I need to be willing and invested in working toward putting the work in to address it. So that's where I come from. That's kind of my guiding force is modifying his advice to me. And then recognizing also things happen and you can have that emotional response, but it doesn't necessarily need your attention. And I kind of say that in regards to social media. A lot of things happen on social media. There's even been things this week that's happened to me where I've been targeted on social media. And why I have that emotional response to it, it doesn't necessarily need my attention. So I'm learning to try to put those into those categories and stay focused on what needs my attention so I can actually do the good work for the community instead of the only emotional response. So always giving praise to my grandfather for that guidance. In talking with members of the community, I have heard Ward 3 specifically. What I'm hearing from Ward 3 is the same concerns that people across the city have. It's been primarily access to affordable housing and community safety. So that mirrors the entire city. I haven't really heard anything specific to Ward 3 as of yet, but I'm gonna be knocking some more doors, so I may hear something. So that's what I've been really trying to focus on. I'm trying to become best friends with the city budget. We'll hopefully get there, because I know that's my responsibility as a council person, is to appropriately direct how to use those funds to align with the city budget and the strategic plan of the city and the needs of the people I'm representing. So I'm working hard to that. I'm also working on learning more about planning and zoning and what that looks like and the terminology, so that we can address those affordable housing issues, infill development, utility needs, infrastructure, all of those things. So that's been kind of my focus. For the public safety, that's where I have seen a specific Ward 3 issue. Unfortunately, Clark Lane is known as a particularly violent stretch. In Ward 3, we just had somebody killed by gunfire not too long ago, unfortunately. And I'm very much aware of that. And in talking with the police department, they said a lot of our gun violence is committed by kids between 15 and 19 years old. And when talking with parents from Battle High School, they actually reported at City Council that Battle High School has a 61% attendance rate. So that's a Ward 3 issue. And I think there's, a correlation between that. So what as a city can we do to support the school district? What conversations do we need to be having that we're not having in order to address the needs of the kids? So I'm excited for the Office of Violence Prevention to see that get off the ground, and partnering and working directly with them to address the youth issues that might be present in Ward 3. I've already had conversations, just conversations, no plans at this point. But, there's been a lot of talk about revitalizing Moonlight Hoops at Douglas. So I've kind of planted the seed of, can we do something like that at Battle? To engage the kids on the northeast side of town in a productive activity with our police department and fire department and whoever else would be part of that community. I've also had conversations about just talking about general gun safety and gun storage. The library has the gun locks now. I've had conversations with people, would you be interested in raising money to actually purchase gun safes that we could give away to people who own guns, so it's out of the hands of their kids. And then the public announcements of storing your gun in a the glove box in your car. It may keep it away from your children, but if you don't lock your car, or even if you do lock your car, other kids are going to break into your car and take those guns. And that's what the police department is seeing right now. So a bunch of different things that I'm trying to already work on at this point, just planting the seeds and having conversations. And that's a lot of information. So there you go. That's me.
I think it's a great place to start. The first question we have in the chat, people like me who've been through the system knows the answer, but let's hear it from you. The difference between OT and PT, and I guess you have POT, or pediatric occupational therapist. And by the way, I always thought you were a young person coming to join our our council. Now I see that you're plenty experienced in many different things. So thank you for that. Tell us a little bit more about that.
I appreciate the young comment. I'll take
it.
I'll accept it. So no, I'll be turning 50 in September. So big day. But so OT. So yeah, and David, you're not wrong. Everybody thinks that's job related. It can be, but occupational therapy is a healthcare profession, health-related profession, allied health profession, health science profession, depending on who you ask. And we focus on occupation as a form of treatment, meaning occupation is what you need to do or what you want to do for your day. So if you need to go back to work, we have work hardening centers. Like if you were injured on the job, then yeah, we can absolutely do that. We can work on those physical skills, helping build up the right muscle groups, the body mechanics, ergonomics, whatever it is,
whereas
to get you back to work.
Physical therapy is really just for strength and survival, let's say.
Exercises.
Right.
Do 10 sets of these exercises, 10 sets, 3 rounds kind of thing.
And with children now, tell us about with children.
Right. So with children, it's about meeting those developmental milestones. So if somebody's sick, or if they just have a delay, then we are seeing, okay, at this level, they should be playing, and they should be playing in this way. So how can we use the environment? How can we use the toys? How can we use the parents, the teachers, their peers to set up an environment where they are engaging in their primary occupation of play? Or for me, working in schools, how can we make sure that we can set up the environment, we can help the child get better in a specific task, we can, again, work with that team so the child can be a student, because we have lots of kids who have a really hard time being a student, either for physical reasons, for cognitive reasons, whatever, for emotional reasons. And so that's the role that we fill. So
I won't let you go on this, because I think there are other policy issues that we must get to. Let's see if Herb can give you one.
All right.
I'd like to get your specific thoughts in some area. Let's choose one you highlighted, housing. What specific problem of low income housing, affordable housing, is quite serious in this town. It's not just a problem of gouging renters. There's too little of it. What specific things can council and mayor do in the near term to increase the amount of housing that is available at lower rents?
Great question. From the conversations that I've had and how I've looked at it, the barrier that I've identified and the information I have gathered is that it's a development issue, that we do have some important things in place, but the developers are complaining that it makes it really hard for them to build housing for various reasons. And so I think that we need to have conversations, and maybe those conversations have been had, I just haven't been part of it yet. What are those specific barriers? I know there's been conversations about the energy efficiency stuff, which I think there's more to it than that, but what part of the ordinances are in place that are causing you the biggest issue with building? That's number one. And trying to figure out how to negotiate or address that directly, because if we don't have the developers, we're not going to get the housing. That's just, I don't know how else we can get housing. Second is the definition of affordable housing, because when you talk to some developers, they're like, oh, I'm going to make you a whole neighborhood and it's all going to be, you know, affordable housing to add to your housing inventory. And then their sell point is $250,000 for a home. That's not affordable housing. And affordable housing doesn't have to be an apartment complex. It can be the smaller homes, the smaller footprint homes, but we need to have those conversations and those definitions. And we need to push back with developers and say, no, 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 this is what we want. And if you want to develop in this town, this is what our expectation is. And just more clearly define that and hold them to it and try to negotiate and figure, because we do need them. It's like this whole push-pull. We need the developers to build the housing, but we need to stand firm on the need of the affordable part and kind of decide where that line is. And it may not be really specific, but that's where I'm at now. And I will continue to learn. And I'm open to suggestion. If there's a developer here who was like, oh, I can tell you.
I think this is an area that has been concern of our council members for quite some time, and we welcome your energy to this problem. I guess you did mention public safety in one issue, thinking about Clark Lane. Do you have more to say about that broadly in a community such as ours? It seems to be one of the hot button issues of the mayor campaign, for example.
Oh goodness, yes, a little bit. And I've had conversations with citizens, but then also, you know, the actual police officers. And I know the term community policing has been thrown out, but it's not that. There's a different term for it, and I can't remember the name of it right now. But when we did have community policing, they had those targeted spots, some of them in Third Ward, like Rice Road, the Demerit area, I believe. McKee was a big area. And I've talked with an officer that used to work the McKee Street area, and he said it was fantastic that they developed this relationship. They were talking with the kids, they knew the families, and they had the data that showed a decrease in crime in those areas. So it was working, and we had to stop it because of the staffing issues. So I think it will be important to revisit that and collaborate with the police department to see if we can move back towards that model. I think that's going to be an important piece to it.
Kathy Jensen.
Yes. Hi, Jackie.
Hi.
Hi. What I wanted to ask is, did you say the Battle High School has a 61% attendance rate?
Yes, I did.
Okay. What do you think the city council could do to address that?
Great question.
Oh.
So my thought process is working with the school to try to find why that's happening. And of course, I'm sure they're obviously aware of it. But from a council perspective, I was thinking, well, is it a transportation issue?
Yeah.
And I mean, our transportation needs work, but if we can somehow, like, there's scarce bus stops and they're in the middle of very busy roads up here in Ward 3. Is there a way that we can, when we're looking at modifying our public transit, that we make sure that we have free public transit available to kids to get them to school, even if it's for half a day? Is that the problem? Because I think that's where the city could assist the schools in getting these kids to school, is providing that public transportation piece. The other is the CARE program, which offers employment for teenagers. Looking at that program, do we need to have a discussion with the school? And this is from somebody who's worked in the schools too. You have your students who really, they just cannot tolerate a full day of school. They just can't. And we can say, buck up and deal with it, but then they're not going to go to school. Is there a program that we could collaborate with them and say, You go to school for 3 to 4 hours a day, you get your core in, and then the city comes and picks you up and you do your care program where you have your employment for the second half of the day. Would that get them to school every day? I don't know. These are discussions I would like to have. There's no one way to solve it, but those are just some things that I had thought about. I really want to see a partnership. So we have the city, the school, and the county all working together to support these kids, because I really think that's what it's going to take, because we can sit here and say all day that it's a CPS issue.
Yeah.
It's not just those are the kids that they're probably going to stay because they can't afford to move, right? Their family can't afford to relocate. So they're going to be in Columbia. And as a city, we need to invest in them to make sure that they have what they need to be productive citizens as adults. And so it's absolutely a city discussion at a minimum.
Thank you for that answer. Herb, do you have another question?
I'm full of questions, as you know. A current issue is utility rates. Where do you stand on that? Not just the question of should there be more revenue coming into the utilities, but who should pay it? Historically, those who are big users pay much, much less per unit than those who are small. Where do you stand on that?
Where do I stand on that? Oh gosh, utilities, the kicking the can down the road. I am very reluctant to raise rates for residential users. It's because it overall impacts our low income families, and it makes that affordable housing less affordable. So I'm very reluctant to do that, to pass it on to the residential consumers. I would not be as reluctant to pass on costs to larger users of utility. If they use more, they should pay more. That's kind of where I'm sitting right now. Again, I have a lot to learn on budget and everything, but that's kind of where I'm sitting on that right now.
Okay, remember that in the chat we have the website of Jackie's campaign, and also for the other guests that we had today. And let's see, I think I have one thing in the chat. Yes, it's a very common question that we have for people in our city government. How do you see working with the council members, the mayor, the city manager, this kind of shared governance structure? What do you want to bring to it?
Right. So I've learned a lot in my life of moving around that regarding a team, whenever you have a turnover and you have a new person in a team, there's always this time of instability where everybody's kind of reestablishing their roles. And that, not to get to psychotherapy, but that's just a reality. You have to, everybody who's staying there or who's been there, they kind of have this established role, and the new person comes in and they have to establish their role. I'm pretty outspoken about things, especially things that I'm passionate about, and public service is one of those things that I'm passionate about. So I look for opportunities to say, I really want to do this. Where do you fall? Or where am I bumping up on you? Am I stepping on your toes? Or can I bring you along? Will you, having those conversations, because I also am very impatient, even though I know that's part of the team process of finding those roles. I tend to be impatient because I want to get to work. And so the way I cope with that is having very open conversations. This is where I'm at on this. Are you in the same place? Can we talk about it? Let's, how can we meet in the middle? What can we do? So I try to be, and I will tell you, because I've received this feedback, a lot of times people I'm on teams with, they may not respond very well to that. They call me direct. I've been called cutting. I've been called other things that we don't need to mention, but it really is just so we can get to the work. I understand that there's a process where we all have to find our place, but I'm interested in getting to the work. And so I ask questions directly because I want to get to work. And so, first impressions isn't always the lasting impression, but that tends to be on a team sometimes where I fall. So Yeah, but I've already started having meetings with council members where we've talked about things. I've already found several things that we already agree on, initiative wise. So, I mean, they've been safe conversations at this point, but they'll, I'm sure, get a lot deeper as we actually move forward.
I think I will just remind everyone that the websites for both of our guests are posted, and also Mr. Bitoy posted a website about community banking or public banking. And so I'd like for, I think we're going to see you here again sometime, Jacque, and I hope that you have an interesting cause or situation to bring to us when you're on our council. But I'll give you just a few minutes to tell us again your wishes for this city and why you're ready to join City Council.
Great, thank you. Yeah, my wish for this city is that it is a safe and inclusive place for the people who want to live here. I don't see my family relocating, and I don't know that my younger son, he's going to be traveling, so I don't know that he'll ever actually live here. With the jobs he's going to have, he'll have a place to land here, but he may not necessarily live here. But my other son who has autism will, and excuse my French, but I'm going to fight like hell to make sure that this community is inclusive of him and that he can live here safely. And I know that if I do that for him, that I do that for everybody else. And so that's my motivation is recognizing that if I can work on behalf of my own children, that it's going to be working on behalf of everybody else to work towards those things that we need to work towards. So I'm just ready to get to work. It's my experience as an OT. We see the problem, we do our evaluation, we see the problem, we see all of the mitigating factors, and then we just freaking get. So I'm just ready to get to work and get on council and start working towards all these things that we've talked about.
Well, thank you very much. And do remember my invitation once you're settled on council and have something that you'd like to talk to us about. Talk to our programming vice presidents or me, and we'll be seeing you again.
I'd be happy to. Thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll see y'all soon.
Thank you for stepping up, Jacque.